with our talk show about the UK. Is the UK okay? And of course, I've got the Thunderous One and I have the Patriotic Christian with me today. And we had a small technical issue, so apologies for the short delay. But yeah, guys, welcome back. Good to see you all again. And how are things in sunny old Blighty?
Never worse. It just gets worse, unfortunately.
Hi, guys.
I'll let Thunderous elaborate.
Thunderous, go ahead.
Hi, guys. Yeah, sorry that we're a little bit late. Slight tech issue. And I think if you're living in the United Kingdom, then you'll understand that a lot of things that are taking place at the moment don't seem to make any sense at all, whether it's intellectual or academic or logical, whatever way you want to look at it. The only way things seem to be making sense is if you have a feel for something. They all seem to be emotionally driven at the moment, and things are not making sense in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, hold on. You know what? Hey, we have the cross and the crescent with us. So hold on, let me share the link. Hold on, let me put the link in the chat. So, of course, you are welcome to join us. Who do we have that joined? It says AI. Did one of you join the chat?
AI.
Oh, Al, someone has joined. There's a queue. IG just joined. Yeah, I'm not having, yeah.
Unusual. Yeah, to go on what Thunderous was saying, I mean, the UK at the moment, I mean, I've never known us to be in such a weak position. In fact, our country now is on a level of embarrassment that it never has been in British history. We are being laughed at by absolutely everyone in the world right now, and it is embarrassing.
I think things are not just taking place that don't make sense in a political way, locally or nationally or internationally, but I think things are taking place at every level in the United Kingdom. If you look at the education system, the health system, the political system, all these spheres seem to be influenced by a particular ideology. And if you challenge the narrative in any one of these areas, that you're liable to be branded, as we all know, with certain pejoratives, whether you're far right, whether you're an Islamophobe, or whether you're a racist. But even schools now are where children are forced into understanding what Islam is, what the 5 pillars of the faith are, what a mosque is, who Muhammad was. Obviously, they'll probably deliberately neglect to tell the children that Muhammad, at the age of 54, had sex with a 9-year-old girl. Those things will be omitted, as we expect. But if you challenge the narrative, the parents are then scourged verbally, locally, as being either Islamophobe or racist this time. So things seem to be happening not just for people immediately, but instantly, and there seems to be no escape from it at the moment.
Right. Eric, I just want to check, Eric the Kaffir, is that you in the waiting room? There's someone called Al or someone called AI in the studio waiting room. I just want to confirm that it's you, because the link is for Eric the Kaffir, if you'd like to join us. Janice, if you'd like to join us, the link is in the chat as well, because you're in the UK, if you'd like to throw in a few words. And so, yeah, obviously the big news maybe is, of course, the Iraq war. And, of course, the UK, which once had the greatest armada, the greatest navy on earth, the greatest the world had ever seen, is now having difficulty getting out its little rowboat from harbor, and can't seem to send it off to defend UK assets in Cyprus or anywhere for that matter. And, of course, President or Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been, we weren't involved in the war. Please, Muslims in Britain, don't make jihad in us. Don't cause problems. Please, we didn't do nothing. And oh, I'm driving. It's not me, just listening, brother. Okay, cool stuff. Thanks, Eric. Good to hear that. Okay, yeah, please join us. Yeah, let's talk and let's join us. Well, Eric, let's plan something. You know, you're welcome on any time. Yeah, so of course, I think this is it's a great embarrassment, and President Trump has been pretty scathing towards, Mr. Starmer.
I don't think he has been scathing enough, if I'm honest. I mean, we literally had British soil hit by a drone. So, I mean, if that's not enough for us to, trigger a response militarily, then what is? I mean, we haven't got any other allies apart from America. We're out the European Union, so Europe are not going to back us. China are not going to back us. Russia are not going to back us. So in terms of this special relationship we're supposed to have with Trump and America, we should be there for our allies, especially in terms of Israel as well. That's and with the Khomeini making these the meetings that you've seen on videos that you can see on X, where you can see people chanting, "Death to America, death to England, death to Israel." Yep. We all should be worried here about the tentacles that this ideology has spread out across Europe, in the United Kingdom, in Israel, and the West as a whole. So it is worrying, and we need to put our foot down.
I think something worth mentioning, just with what was just coming to my mind, and I don't want to forget that. I wasn't earlier on today in New York at some kind of march that a guy shouting Allahu Akbar threw an object into the march or the protest and then ran off. And it hasn't been disclosed whether it is an actual bomb that didn't go off or whether it was some kind of scare
actually, yes, it was a one of these pipe bombs, but fortunately it didn't explode.
Well, there you go.
Sleeper cells, and this is what we've got to look forward to. I mean, Iran, we had 20 thwarted attempts on British soil from Iran and their proxies to, create or have a direct terrorist attack on our people on British land. And if that doesn't scare you enough into calling for action, then at least the humanity side of it, where you've seen up to 32,000 people shot, some in their hospital beds, simply for protesting, that should be enough for us to want to get involved as well. I mean, ain't the left or the radical left supposed to be all kind, loving, and humane? I mean, what is this? It's nonsense.
Yeah, the thing with the radical left, I was giving consideration to Jesus' words at Matthew 23:15, where Jesus launches a scathing attack on the Pharisees, where he talks about them making proselytes. They proselytize them, and then they make them twice as worthy for Gehenna than they themselves are. And I couldn't help but think with what Lloyd's going to be touching on later on in the discussion, it's about when you look at, say, the investment of Qatari money or Arab money in universities and things, it's as though that they are targeting human beings that already have a predisposition towards some kind of strife or enmity or causing chaos or causing friction or even violence. So these people may look like they're left, they may look like they're loving, but it seems to me, in my estimation, that that's not really the case of who these human beings are. The Arab money is tapped into a psyche in these college campuses and such of human beings that seem to have a predisposition towards some kind of anarchy and self-suicide towards themselves and to the country. So it's not that these are the left. They are dressed up as the left, but they are something far, far worse.
Wolves in sheep's clothing.
You mentioned earlier, Ron, that China won't help you, but of course you will help China because your prime minister gave permission for China to build an amazing super embassy in the heart of London, a meter away from the major fiber cables that carry your major traffic. So this will allow them to have a basement where they can access critical British data. They can have critical spy equipment. It's insane.
It certainly is. And if the things that are happening that you see on the news doesn't alarm you, the things that, I mean, everything's happening all at once here in the UK. We were hit with the grooming gangs. Before that, it was COVID, the jabs, the lockdowns, so on and so forth. Cost of living crisis, this net zero nonsense. blasphemy laws being brought in through the back door, which is coming out tomorrow, by the way. It will be official as of tomorrow. We've had the right fragmenting and being infiltrated as well. There is so much going on in the United Kingdom right now that, well, the disunited kingdom, I would say, that it no longer represents anything of what, its shadow self. And I'm genuinely concerned now, Lloyd, that we are going to a point now of beyond repair. If we are not careful, we will go past that point.
I would have to echo the sentiments of what Rowan is saying there. Living in England, you're just seeing things happening on a daily basis. And it was interesting that before the show started, Lloyd, you made a comment about England being run by communists. And I found it, I don't know if you meant that as a pun, given that tomorrow there will be the announcement of the government appointing a anti-Muslim czar. Not given any other title but a czar, which is a particularly communist word or title to use. So, I mean, this is yet again another protection being given to a specific ideology, which is already we need protection from them. They don't need protection from us.
Yeah, surprising there's no pro-British czar, because it's interesting as well. There was an interesting news interview that I watched with Shabana Mahmood, your Minister for the Interior, or whatever it is, and she was saying she's English, and what's interesting is she's Pakistani. English is an ethnicity, whereas being British, you could say, is a cultural identity or a national identity. But English is like being Indian or being Sri Lankan or being South African or whatever, or being Bangladeshi. Right? She's Pakistani. She's not English. She's British. And I see you've got a divisive English flag behind you there, Rowan. That's actually, I think, a sign of causing conflict, of creating division, and fomenting rebellion in your country. I mean, the English flag, of course, as you know, is a form of hate speech.
If you recall, several months ago, we did a discussion about the anti-abortion laws. In a way, you're praying outside an abortion clinic, you can actually be arrested. But now, is it with? We discussed it. I forget what the circumference is, or the distance. Whether it's 150 meters. If you're displaying something inside your property, and somebody on the way to the abortion clinic can see it, and they perceive it as a distressing, causing situation for them, you can actually be arrested. Okay, for displaying such. It might get to the point where somebody like Rowan, who's on a live stream having a discussion, having the flag in his own house in the background could be something that could be branded as a hate crime, because it could be something that causes distress to people in the future.
To Muslims, you mean? Will somebody think of the Muslims? Because, I mean, there's discussion of banning dogs in parks, and banning certain breeds of dogs in the UK because it's offensive to a certain group that doesn't like dogs.
Yeah, well, going back to the flag. So yesterday and today was talking about the HMS Prince of Wales, and I believe it's the HMS Dragon, or either one of them. They were talking about ships joining the US and Israeli conflict against Iran. This flag was flying in this, and you could see it on the news, and there was no problem. Of course, there's no problem when you want to call people to war. They'll use the flag as a sign of patriotism to encourage people to join. But whenever you want to use it domestically, in your home or socially or culturally, it's branded as a racist flag. Now, going back to this whole argument between who is English and who is British, this is another huge argument that has fragmented the right and centre-right in politics currently. Reform UK they've shown their true colours now, with Nigel Farage saying anyone with a British passport can call themselves British. And you've got the likes of Shabana Mahmood also saying she is English. She is not English.
It's a traditional British name, right?
Pardon? Yeah, of course. It sounds it.
Muhammad. So that's a traditional British name because she's the face of modern Britain, according to Keir Starmer.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk statistically on names, yes, Mohammed is the #1 trending name currently, which is, again, it shows the actual damage that is being done to this country in terms of demographic change. As for the dogs, that's one thing I do not believe they will ever be able to get over the line. They will never, ever be able to stop.
Try. The thing is, the problem, the moment you decide that you're going to speak up about it, they're going to use that against you as a sign of Islamophobia, of not having respect for brown people. You know how it goes.
I think the dog thing is a clever move because if you look at certain principles on how to get things enacted, you tend to go for the weaker ones in the vain hope that the stronger ones are the ones that will be imposed. So going after dogs, which is a traditional British culture, one man and his dog, and a dog is a man's best friend. We have so many phrases and idioms to that. But I do foresee that under other guises that dogs on a leash can be dangerous, and they may bring up past events where dogs have actually had incidents with, say, children or other human beings in public places where there could well be imposed restrictions, but it will be like a backdoor thing. It will be under the guise of dogs being on leashes and causing problems like dog mess and such. But the truth of it, the roots of this, the incoming or possible incoming restriction will be Islamically motivated.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Right. I want to show something while we're here. Few people have I've actually read the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I just want to mention something. This is from an article on alhassanain.org. In the 1930s, the political elites in Persia felt that the country was not being treated fairly by the British. So they started seeing in Hitler an alternative to British power. They were impressed by Hitler's success in making the German army the most feared war machine in Europe, and by the initiatives he was taking to transform Germany into an Aryan paradise. So the Persians became convinced, this would be the leaders, of course, that the future belonged to Hitler's Aryan ideology. With the aim of Aryanizing their own society, the Persians tried to purify their language and customs. They tried to resurrect cultural practices from Persia's illustrious past. In March 1935, Prime Minister Reza Shah Pahlavi took the decision to change Persia's name to Iran. The word Iran means land of the Aryans. Isn't that interesting? They were trying to do that in sympathy to Germany. So just thought I'd mention that. So maybe some of these people would have had inspiration that we wouldn't think was necessarily pure.
The master race.
Sorry, Thunderous?
I'm saying the master race, eh?
Yep. So there's something very just something to think about, And also, this is in the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is the opening preamble to the Constitution of the Islamic Republic. And they speak of a religious army. In the formation and equipping of the country's defense forces, attention must be paid to faith, that's Islam, and ideology as basic criteria. Accordingly, the army of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are to be organized in conformity with this goal. And they will be responsible not only for guarding and preserving the frontiers of this country, but also for fulfilling the ideological mission of jihad in Allah's way. Now, somehow these guys didn't get the memo and weren't told that jihad is actually just being nice to other people, helping little old ladies across the street, or having more salads and going to the gym. Somehow these guys, the memo skipped them entirely, and they believe that they must export the Islamic revolution to the entire world. That is, extending the sovereignty of Allah's law throughout the world. In other words, Iran must impose the Sharia on the entire world. In accordance with the Quranic verse, prepare against them whatever force you are able to muster, and strings of horses, striking fear into the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others. Quran 8, 60. That is also the verse that is mentioned on the black flag of jihad, and of course on the Saudi Arabian flag. That's the exact verse. So they all have the same intentions. Your thoughts, guys?
Well, for me, starters, I think the jihad is my jihad is going to the gym. My jihad is this. All the soft tone jihad now. I think we've gone beyond that, and I think people in the public, the secular lands, are now seeing beyond this. I think the internet has revealed it for what it really is. But also now the scholars of Islam, or the sheikhs, or the teachers, or the YouTube personalities are now more upfront about it as well. They're speaking quite openly as to what jihad really is. I think one of the reasons why they're doing that is because the internet has revealed jihad for what it is. They don't want to be seen as liars, blatant liars anymore, so they may as well admit it. And now that they've got, say, governments and legal laws, and they've got mayors in America, they've got mayors in this country. I think recently, of all places in this country, they elected a Muslim mayor in Brighton, which is the San Francisco of the United Kingdom. How the heck did they get? And he can barely speak English, this character. But the fact that they're gaining political power in these isolated areas is giving
that's okay. Jihad. I am moving to Pakistan. I'm going to become mayor of Islamabad any day now.
But you can see what's happening in with the subject that you'll be going on to in a moment, Lloyd, about where things are going in the United Kingdom. But we're seeing a mirror reflection taking place in America as well. I've seen certain images, and maybe people in the chat have seen certain images as well, where in America and in Ireland, in Scotland, in recent months, where the local police force have actually been going into where the immigrants are and into mosques, asking specifically for Muslims to join the police force or to give consideration to joining the police force. Can anybody see what problem we may have if we have Muslim people policing the United Kingdom in certain locations?
Partisan police force.
Yeah, it would be absolutely dangerous. I mean, we already had a taste of that during the Southport riots, where we seen a Muslim liaison officer telling his Muslim brothers to put their weapons in the mosque. None of them were arrested. I mean, these were, and in fact, that was what actually brought down my previous YouTube channel, was uploading that precise video. 3 strikes for the same video, which goes against their own policies. But anyway, we're talking not just a kitchen knife here or anything like a baseball bat, but full-on swords, daggers, machetes, zombie knives, you name it, it was there. And the mainstream media didn't touch on it. The police didn't say anything about it. There was no announcements. And anyone who tried uploading it on mainstream media like YouTube, on platforms like YouTube and Facebook, they got blocked and had their profiles deactivated. So it goes to show you the force they have already without doing, actually making them more, hard-line police officers, if you like.
There's a guy in the chat, is it Mulhid Al-Islam, who's commented and says, you guys are jealous of the new face of Britain.
Don't worry, he's just trolling us. He's fine. Don't worry about him. He's okay.
Okay, fair enough. I nearly went into launch mode. I nearly went into belligerent mode.
No,
that's fair. But so just going back to what we're seeing in the United Kingdom, but we're also seeing these things where, as we all know, where Muslims are gaining political power in local government when voting is taking place. We're also seeing things now. If the law goes ahead tomorrow, or the government goes ahead tomorrow, by appointing an anti-Muslim czar, which is basically an Islamophobia law by the back door, then and you're going to have police from the Muslim background. Can anybody see what problem's going to happen if it's going to be perceived Islamophobia or perceived attacking Muslim? Any given situation then will then, if a Muslim's involved in a certain crime with a non-Muslim, and you've got a Muslim person that's identifying as a policeman going to the scene of the crime, can anybody tell me what the end result's going to be of that situation?
Favoritism for one side. I mean, already it's even with English police people, to use the woke term, they already have favoritism for one side. Clearly, the police are politically partisan for the left to LGBT causes and, of course, to Islam. So, yeah, this is going to be. I mean, there are more Muslims, more British Muslims went to fight for ISIS than there are in the UK army, and there are more Muslims, or almost as many Muslims, on the terror watch list with MI5 than there are in the British Army. So the UK has a serious 95% of the people on the terror watch list in the UK are Muslims. And yet, of course, the problem is people like Roan here, who are pale-faced English people with what we call a patriotic complex.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, what it does, I believe, if tomorrow does go ahead, is it will just bring us closer to that level of civic unrest or civil war. People are going to be scared to report things. People are going to be scared to highlight any issues that are taking place, which is what we've seen with the grooming gang scandal. And I believe then this will embolden the Muslim community to do a lot more damage than what they're doing already. This will embolden them to do what they've been planning to do for a very long time. And if anyone wants to say anything against it, they will be, imprisoned, cancelled, lose their jobs. So go on.
I was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Rowan. I was just going to say, with what you're saying there, I was going to add that you can see the seeds are being sown within certain companies, and certainly in the education system, where children are being indoctrinated almost to inform on what is, like there's an advert recently about a child saying, I forwarded on without realizing a Twitter about how to make a bomb, but it was a white young man. So already creating a fear factor within the children, or the children of the education system already. You can almost see it get to the point where children will be, inculcated with a mindset that, because already the state have a certain amount of control on children anyway. If your child is born with a penis, they can, or say that your child is born XY, they can identify as XX, and the school are under no legal obligation to inform the parents that that's the case, and they have to govern that child now by applying everything within the school to that child's subjective worldview. If you're empowering children in that way, and you're removing the responsibility or authority of the parents in that situation, I would question them, what's the next step in all of this? Are you then going to empower your children to inform on the parents as to what kind of news or programs or commentary your parents are making? Then the child goes back to school and says, well, my daddy or mummy's said this or that about this or that ideology, or that they have this political view, or maybe they associate with these kind of friends. Is that where we're going to now, where children will inform on parents?
Well, another issue is that you find routinely, and I've seen people speak up about this, Christian children, Western British children, English children are taken to mosques. They have to wear hijabs, wear niqabs. They've got to pray. They've got to recite the Quran. They've got to recite the prayers. And they do this as a school outing, and everybody's compelled to do it. And there's a problem if you don't go or don't allow your kid to go. And often the kids are told not to tell their parents. How many Muslims are taken to a church?
Well, there's hardly any churches left, because they're all being turned into mosques. However, what I will say on that as well is what they do with the parents is they'll send a letter out as well, saying that they're going on a religious educational trip. I've done a video on this In fact, I made a very
but then shouldn't they be taking Muslim kids to churches and say, hey, let's pray, let's sing some psalms, let's read from the Bible, let's do a few hymns here and there, let's do a few of these things. So, and what will happen? Those parents are going to be up in arms. There's going to be a riot. But I think this is what they need to do. It's got to be clearly there's a certain favoritism and a strong bias in one direction only.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think, and when you analyze all of this as well, it's almost pushing people. If you applied the principle of the Hegelian dialectic, which I'm inclined to think is what's going on here, is that if you want people to go into a certain direction, the likelihood is that they're not inclined to. But now at the moment, you're seeing people very much being pushed into a certain direction, and Islam seems to be the tool that's facilitating that direction or that movement or that inclination, where people are getting fed up. They are now reacting to as well. I find it interesting in all of this, Lloyd and Rowan, and I don't know whether you agree with me, how much of this is going to impact high-end education. What I mean by that is when you go to colleges and universities and academia with their research into Islam as well, whether the fear of the anti-Muslim SAR appointments is then going to restrict anybody in the education system or research system or archaeology system, if they've got projects at the moment looking into, say, the Quran or the Hadith, the history of these things, or Mecca or anything that Islam claims, that could bring further scrutiny on Islam in a negative light, whether the education system will be affected in a negative way. That, for me, is also a problem.
Yeah, a couple of things to mention, because Janice just mentioned they're burning the churches, and that is true. Deliberate arson attacks on churches are part of a wider increase in hate crimes against Christians, but who is to blame? I bet you it's not Buddhists. I'm willing to bet money on that.
Yeah,
right.
And the saddest thing about this all is that none of the news will dare talk about anything to do with Christians being bullied or churches being burnt down or anything to do with Christians, Jews, Sikhs, or Hindus. It's always the Muslims that are being portrayed as these weak victims that need help, that need more money, that need laws to protect them, when rather it's the opposite. It's everybody else that needs protecting from the Muslims.
When just going as well on what Road is saying there, is that when you do find churches are being attacked, and it's kind of obvious who's doing the attack on the churches, but whenever a mosque is attacked, it seems to be anti-Muslim or Islamic phobic attack. But only a day or two later do you find it was actually a Muslim setting fire to the mosque in order to bring some kind of sensationalism. Oh, the far right did this to Muslims. Muslims are being persecuted. Muslims are under attack. We are very scared to walk down the streets.
Yeah.
Well, so there is something behind the narrative of churches being attacked and burnt, and no one's comment on it. But when we find mosques attacked, you pretty much find it's an internal problem that's causing this situation for Muslims.
They made a whole documentary on that one mosque in Southport when it all kicked off after Axel Rudakabana did the atrocious evil acts that he did on those innocent young girls. That one mosque was portrayed, and the Muslim community after were portrayed as these heroes, as they were victims, but then they all come together after and they cleaned up the streets. And this is what Britishness is. This is British values, and that we should be more like them. In fact, these are the good guys, and the white working class people who were angry about innocent children being stabbed to death, that they're the problem of society, not the other way around. And they portrayed also. They portrayed also.
You should go straight to the gallows for a public hanging.
100%. And they portrayed also Axel Rudakabana as a Welsh choir boy. So even when they do talk about Muslims that have committed some acts that are atrocious, they're evil, and they've been sentenced to prison for whatever types of crime it may be, they will always portray them to be something else rather than Muslims or have anything associated with Islam.
Yeah, local guy, local man, local Welshman, local Scottish man. You know, it's they use very. I think one of the clues in all of this is when they think they're being clever with dialogue, with this sort of like double speak. But the fact of the matter is they've given the game away already, that when you know something terrible has happened and they're giving you a very vague description, you already know what the identity is. Because if it was, say, a local white guy from the indigenous population of this country, then they'll tell you who it was. It was John Doe, white guy, lives in this address or lives from this town. You'll know what and they'll probably have a picture of him as well and give you a family history. But from when it's somebody that's not fitting that description, we all know who they're talking about.
That is true. I mean, look, one church is burned every week in the UK and France for the last 6 years. That is a lot of churches. That's 350 churches. I mean, what, last 6 years? So wait, that's 50 weeks a year. Worked it out. What, that's 6 years. Sorry, that's 300 churches. Yeah. And this article is from, when was this article written? So it doesn't have it, but that's more than 302 churches between 2018 and 2024. So you can add another 50 to 100 churches on top of that number. That's 400 churches. I just want to say thank you to Jesus Loves You for that donation. Thank you very, very much. We do see it. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate it. I mean, this is shocking. This is unacceptable.
But Lloyd, in fairness, Lloyd, one has to accept the fact that the churches, they've done this to themselves. They've betrayed the local people and they've betrayed the God of the Bible. They've allowed wokeism and atheism and any version of evolution to be taught in the church. They've broken down the community themselves. I've got no sympathy for these churches because they've betrayed the God of the Bible and they've betrayed the people. We've already had on this show, was it last year, where we're showing certain pastors promoting homosexuality, promoting abortion, promoting wokeism, lesbianism, and all these things. Is it any wonder that the local community have said, well, we're looking at the Bible and we're looking at what you're doing. You're nothing to do with the Bible, you know. So
but that causes people to fracture and to fend for themselves when they should be rallying around the flag.
But that's atheism. Atheism has done this. This vacuum, and I've said it before and I'll say again, the vacuum that you've got in secular lands has been 100% absolutely irrefutable, cannot be denied, down to atheism and the evil conjoined twin that's attached to it, and that is some version of evolution.
Yeah. So today I mentioned to you guys, we want to talk a little bit about the influence of the Islamic lobby, because everyone goes on about Israel, but there is an incredible amount of power because they have an incredible amount of money because of oil wealth by the Islamic lobby. And I want to go just refresh everyone on this. I've discussed this before. We've done it, Thunderous. And this is a very sad point. Craig mentions they will feed us this rubbish until they can take over and treat us as second-class citizens in our own land. How many UK cities will be enclaves in the next 20 years? This is our Jerusalem. And sadly, this is an issue. However, I want you to understand that you, as the English, you still outnumber the foreigners in your country. And if push comes to shove, when those dominoes start to fall, you are the majority. You must understand you have the ability to actually push back because you have the majority control. You've got something to fight for. Right? And just one moment. And then also, these people tend to take over cities. And from a survivability point of view, this actually leaves them very exposed. And this is something that I've read already with war planners who are looking at the civil war scenario in various cities in Europe. This is France, Germany, other places where they are taking over. It's not that hard to cut off a city. You simply cut off food, water, electricity, power, right? Those people are not going to be very happy for very long. Once you cut off the power, once you cut off fresh water, once you cut off food access, because those things, last I checked, are not made in the city. So
It's interesting you should say that, Lloyd. It's interesting you should say that because in the 90s, when during the times of the IRA, I'd often think to myself, I understood it from the Islamic point of view because that's what Islam teaches, that you kill people to progress your religious or political point. Whereas what I didn't understand with the IRA was, what if you're trying to gain favor, why does killing innocent people make sense? It doesn't. You're just pushing people away. And one of the things I used to say was, why don't they just bomb the M25 or bomb the railway link? That'll stranglehold London, for any kind of political view, and nobody's getting hurt. All you're doing is just wearing people down mentally and emotionally.
Now, this is something I've seen war planners and war gamers already discuss, and they're aware of it. And to be honest, these guys aren't going to be doing themselves any favors. And if they start turning into roaming groups, then of course they run into the majority group, which is the English outside of the cities, and they are more vulnerable. Right. So there's pro and con to all of that, but that's a different story. So let's briefly dive into this. We'll jump through this. I don't want to get into too much depth. Remember those. These are fighting words here, but this is about the Islamic lobbyist. So the Islamic lobby undermines all interest. At the time, we were focused on U.S. interests, but this obviously has affected Britain, Germany. This has affected, Belgium, you name it, Holland. This is a problem that is everywhere. France. It influences foreign and domestic policy. My name is Keir Starmer, and I'm scared to join the fight against Iran because the Muslims in my own cities are going to revolt, and I'm terrified, right? So it influences domestic policy.
Even when the Muslim Arab states go against it, you can't write it, can you? That we're more Islamic than Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states that are working with America and Israel to attack Iran. It's crazy.
Yep, these people want the destruction of Israel, but don't forget, after they take out the Jews, after the Saturday people, they're coming for the Sunday people, which is you. They have spent billions on university-influenced dawah. As we know, you've seen all these pro-Palestinian marches. And now there's the pro-Iranian marches for the mullah. Yeah. You see mosques in the UK having vigils to pray for the Sunnis, having vigils for the Shia ayatollahs.
But Lloyd, we discussed this years ago when I said to you that Islam, what I noticed in 1989 when the fatwa was given to Salman Rushdie, Islam behaves very much like soccer hooligans of the 80s and the 90s in this country. You've got the Chelsea fighting the Millwall fighting West Ham fighting Tottenham fighting, but come in England game, they'll all unite. And this is what happens in Islam. They'll all have their 73 sects, fighting each other, arguing with each other. But if you attack Islam, they'll unite under one banner. And that's pretty much what you're seeing now.
And you see the Iranians are celebrating, and everyone else is like, oh my God, no, we've got to do something to defend Iran. You're like, you see the marches for Palestinians who are getting fat and opening restaurants faster than you can count. And when thousands, I spoke to a friend of mine yesterday. He's German. He's got a friend in a town outside of Tehran. And he says internet's been cut off. He hasn't heard from his friend for days now. He doesn't know what's going on. But his friend said, look, these numbers of the number of people being killed by security forces are actually worse than people realize. He said in her town alone, 9,000 people were killed. That's what he said. He said she told him 9,000 people were killed in her town. She showed him photos of the destruction of the people, the bodies. But now he says he hasn't been able to hear from her. She's been cut off. He doesn't know he has no idea what's going on. But there were no marches for the murders of the tens of thousands of people in Iran.
That goes to what Rowan was saying on. So Rowan hit a point earlier on when he was talking about the mental and mindset of the left, who are supposed to be compassionate. And as you've just said there, Lloyd, about the thousands that have been slaughtered by the IRGC, but nobody seems to be concerned about these innocent people, being killed. But the death of a Muslim leader that ordered or sanctioned the murder of these innocents is having a vigil for him by these people in America and the United Kingdom. And it's not just the pro-Iranians, is it? It's the leftists as well, with the blue rinse people that are all involved in these protests and marches in favor of the IRGC, which hasn't been prescribed yet in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, we know the IRGC, the whole plan is to export the Islamic Revolution across the world.
Yeah, definitely.
That's part of their constitution. Literally, they are a terrorist state that in their constitution says they're going to export their terror worldwide to make you wear a bin bag if you're a woman, and you have to obey the Sharia, just like all the other Muslim men in Iran. So we have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but Muslims in their culture, they say, do not let your enemy know he's your enemy. So these people are your enemy, but they don't want you to know. So keep that in mind. This is just something to bear in mind.
There's another verse as well where it says, hate them with your hearts, but love them with your lips. So somewhere along that, there's that context. And that's in a hadith as well.
Yeah, is that the one that says we smile in their faces, but our hearts curse them?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And just going on these marches as well, I attended one just days ago where I stood with the Iranians and a couple of Israelis that were celebrating in Bristol, and directly opposite us was Antifa and the left, the radical left, that were pointing at us, calling us Nazis. Now, you could clearly see Jews that were there. You could see Iranians there. They were calling us racist. They were calling us fascist. And this group, Antifa, that call themselves the so-called anti-fascists, pointing at us while supporting a fascist who has just died, mourning a fascist, with a fascist ideology and a fascist regime, pointing the finger at us, calling us fascists. You couldn't write it. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. So you're going, Thunders, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jamie Dodger in the comments said the Muslim population is far higher than we are told. For example, 400 schools with less than 2% white Brits, not even talking about 5, 10, or 30, 50% are the minority in many towns and cities. That's an interesting point you raised there, Jamie Dodger, because I think there's 70 schools in the United Kingdom that we know of that don't even have white children in them as well.
Yeah. I wonder, Jamie Dodger, would you like to come on? I mean, so this is not for trolls to come on. Jamie Dodger, I've dropped the studio link. If you want to come on and say a few words, I've dropped the link in the chat if you want to come on. If you're from the UK, and preferably people we know, with your camera, preferred, of course, but come on. Of course, we take the risk here then that there will be some trolls. But Jamie Dodger, if you'd like to come on, the link's in the chat if you want to say a few words. So everyone talks about the Israeli lobby, of course, to demonize Jews, etc., and of course white people. But few people talk about the Islamic lobby and the billions. And these guys, for instance, wrote a book on the Israel lobby and U.S. foreign policy, and they talked about how these guys influence American politics. The weird problem is that they failed to mention is that people like the Jews because of the biblical connection, the Holy Land. Christians actually like Israel, whereas people don't like, sadly, Islam or Muslims or the Middle East. So it's a really simple equation.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And I was just going to say as well, there is currently at the moment a new trend of, let's say, anti-Semitism, which is rising at a rapid rate on the right, which is quite concerning as well. So yeah, I just wanted to speak about that. That needs to be, brought up, I believe.
Yeah. So just so you know, the whole influence ops in U.S. universities by Muslims, right? This is something I've covered extensively, but here they've mentioned, when was this written? This was written years ago. I mean, this was published June 13th, 2019, right? And this was 9 years ago. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, and other countries, including Iran, right? But at that point in 2019, Qatar had provided $1.5 billion to US universities and colleges since 2012. I mean, the last time that we did the numbers, and the FBI has looked at these numbers, and they're probably 50% or a third. So we can double or triple the numbers, the known numbers. But you are looking at billions of dollars given to universities worldwide. And that's just US universities, never mind Canada, UK, France, Britain, Germany, and so on, right? So these guys are funding universities, and you see it in the Palestinian uprisings. They've been indoctrinating people. So you've got tons and tons of this. This is a well-known issue, right? So these guys, the two guys I just mentioned before, John Mearsheimer, who talks utter nonsense, this guy here, this twat over here on the left. So they created the narrative there's an all-powerful Israeli lobby that controls the US Middle East policy and conspiratorially controls the US. And their book ignored the existence of rival Arab Islamic interests, right? And of course, the truther community also ignores the fact that there's massive amounts of oil money that influences politics in the West, because they have the talking point of the poor Arabs have no power, all right? Now, the Hamas charter itself has a bunch of conspiracy theories embedded in it. And of course, the Jews control the government. No, we like the Jews. We actually like the Middle East. It's where Jesus came from. He was one of them. So there's that actual America is a lot of Christians in America, and therefore they have a lot of affinity for that part of the world. Whereas the Muslims, Allahu Akbar, and things are going to explode, they don't, right? So the online truth community basically became apologists for Islam, right? Israel's population is 8 million people, right? Comprises 0.01% of the global population, but is supposedly the cause of 99% of the conflicts that have occurred since 9/11. The Israeli government, through AIPAC and other lobbies, have a stranglehold. Stranglehold here means popular support among Americans, popular support among Christians, popular support amongst people who are not insane, right? So they want to claim that these people have infiltrated governments, 99.6% of the 6 major, blah, 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 blah. You guys get the idea, right? So let's have a look. The problem with Islam. Now, these numbers, unfortunately, the last time I updated these numbers was about 4 years ago, right? But the problem with Islam, since 9/11, there have been, and the numbers are now about 43,000 or more, okay? So 4 years ago, there were 40,689 recorded Islamic Jihad terror attacks, right? In 2021, 53 countries had 2,258 Muslim attacks, murdering 11,187 people, injuring just under 10,000. In 2020, 54 countries were attacked by Muslims, over 2,000 attacks, murdering over 10,000, injuring nearly 8,000. Are we starting to see a pattern here?
Yeah. Yes, it's absolutely. The statistics on the religion of peace, I believe that they've recorded, I think it's 48,000, I believe. I think it's over 48,000 terror attacks since 9/11. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
2019, 45 countries were attacked. Go on, Thunderous.
No, I was just going to say that the Islamic world, or people in your local community, or the people that you get on the bus with, or people that you work with, will deny these things are actually taking place. They will deny these statistics. They will say that they're gross inflations and conflations, misunderstandings are taken out of context, or because it's the Jewish media that are behind the news reports, that somehow the Jews are conflating the figures to get this. But this is not the case. Facts don't care about your feelings. And
well, here's an honest question. If you had to hear someone say namaste to you, would you start breaking out in a sweat, or would you go, that's a lovely Buddhist? If someone had to go, if someone had to tell you peace of Christ, would you shit your pants and run down the street? But if you heard Allahu Akbar, would you A, wait for the stabbing, B, wait for the bullets to start flying, or C, wait for the bomb to explode?
Oh, three.
I would like to ask people in the chat as well, if they work in an office place where, like I work for a bank, And we have obviously people of certain backgrounds, ideologies, and political viewpoints, but we do have a fair selection of Muslims there. And you can tell the Muslims are just sort of like simple people. They just go to work and they go home, because fundamentally, we're all human beings. And some people, they're born into a system, they don't know much about it, and they'll just go about their working life and go home. But then you find that some are in the office space and they're from that Muslim background and they've got pure attitude, just pure attitude about them. And you have to ask yourself the question, when you're in an office space with these people, what is your disposition towards them? Because I'll tell you now, with me, it's pure belligerence. I don't take any of their shit.
Yeah. So just so by the way, 2018, you had just under 2,000 attacks in 55 countries, just under 12,000 people murdered, and just under 12,000 people injured. 2017, 2,000 plus attacks in 61 countries, 16,387 known people murdered by these Muslims, and over 14,000 injured. 2016, 2,500 attacks in 59 countries, 21,413 people murdered, 26,730 injured. And people need to realize the most persecuted religious group on earth is not those Palestinians, it's Christians.
It is a worldwide, if you want to look at the word genocide, then you'd have to say Christianity is facing a genocide.
Yeah,
if you want to...
Actually, let me bring that up.
So I've got it here, Lloyd. I've just had a look now at the jihad report. So since 9/11, there has been officially 49,049 attacks since 9/11 to the current day. In the past week, so from February the 28th to March the 6th, there were 42 attacks with 159 killed, 283 injured in 15 different countries. Welcome to Islam, the religion of peace.
Yeah, hold on. So let's go to religionofpeace.com. Very cool. That is the website, right? That's the...
Yeah.
No, hold on. Religion of Peace website.
They make it hard for you to go. You have to ask twice. I've noticed that as one myself.
Okay, yeah. So let's have a look at the jihad report. So February 28th to March 6th, 2026, there have been 42 Islamic terror attacks, 159 people killed, 283 injured. Luckily, no suicide bombings, and 15 countries have been attacked. There have been 49,049 terror attacks carried out by Muslims since 9/11. In February, there were 119 attacks, 770 people killed by Muslims. This is purely from public reporting, right? This is purely what has been publicly reported, right? They get this from public sources. 510 people injured, 4 suicide bombings, and 20 countries attacked. So there you go. So
you really have to give gratitude and be thankful that there are people that are taking the initiative to set up these kind of websites so that people like us and the people in the panel and people that watch the show can look at these things and see the real gravitas of what's taking place on this planet.
I'll drop this in the chat. The religionofpeace.com. It's the religion of peace. The religion of peace.com.
Robert Spencer has put on there as well, which is interesting. UK moles banning 67 dog breeds for animal health reasons.
Animal health.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because Muslims don't like your dog. Are you going
What did I say about the back door?
What's that?
So what did I say earlier on in the show about the back door? They'll bring it in somehow, but it'll be by the back door. It won't be obvious. And that's what I said at the beginning of the show.
So up to 2021, there was 105,475 known Muslim murders in 15,050 Islamic Jihad attacks since 2015. That's crazy. That is insane. And this is 5 years out of date. This list is now 5 years out of date.
Incredible. It's incredible. They don't give it the attention that it truly deserves, the media, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They really should.
Yeah. Oh, Art Butler's here again. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, if the media was controlled by the Jews, as the Muslims allege, then these sort of things would be in the news. That's the irony. They would be in the news.
It'd be everywhere. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
So the Arab lobby operates unseen. There's no public visible HQ like APAC. Operates by stealth, is barely known to the public, and is not discussed. So James Zogby wrote in 1982, there is no Arab lobby. So the standard approach by Muslims and their supporters and enablers and people in Western media since the 80s here is there is no. James Zogby runs one of the largest polling companies in the world, very influential in politics, and he said there's no Arab lobby, right? The Paul University political science professor Khalil Marar contacted Arab American organizations for interviews for research on the Arab lobby, was told there is no Arab lobby in Washington, D.C., right? So there is no Arab lobby, but remember there's no Arab lobby, you see. But so it's all this money that is being used. Well, it's not happening. Don't believe your lying eyes. But the Arab lobby is older than the Israeli lobby. The Arab National League of America was founded in the 1930s before Israel even existed. Right? In 1951, King Saud of Saudi Arabia asked US officials to finance a pro-Arab lobby to counter the pro-Israel lobby. Right? And the CIA obliged him because oil money. So James Zogby, this is at the American University in Cairo. He's the founder, president of the Arab American Institute and the author of Arab Voices. So he wants to nurture and encourage the direct participation of Arab Americans in political and civil life in the United States. That was his aim and goal. But he's saying we have no lobby. The man's whole mission outside of his polling business is to encourage Muslim participation in American politics, but we're not involved in American politics. The maths is not mathing here.
Incredible. Is he still active as well?
I don't think so. He's probably not even alive now. I don't know. Someone can check. So they represent the policy and community interests of Arab Americans, say Muslims. Okay, let's just say Muslims. They promote Arab American participation in the U.S. electoral system. Think New York, Muslim mayor, right, as voters and as candidates. And so, but yeah, I think you get the idea. He's the senior advisor of the polling firm Zogby International. Okay, he wrote a weekly column that appeared in 20 Arab newspapers, but he's got no influence. And host of a weekly call-in discussion program, Viewpoint, on Abu Dhabi television in the UAE. A member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Democratic National Committee. But there is no Arab lobby. There is nobody pushing for Arab interests, at least in the US, except for one guy and there are many that are pushing for Arab interests, Muslim interests. Any thoughts from you guys?
I would say I'm not surprised, but it's just more that you can take from it, don't you? I mean, it's just the cream on top of the coffee that's been made. You can take what you want from it, but people do need to wake up and actually start smelling this, because it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting, the influence that is being forced upon countries, especially Western countries, by the ideology of Islam or Arabs, whatever you want to call it, is far more dangerous than this so-called Israel lobby that people like to bring up all the time, blame the Jews all the time. This whole idea is just pathetic.
And he was promoting the Palestine human rights nonsense back in the 70s here, back in the 70s. Also, he was pushing for Islamophobia, executive director of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination, Anti-Islamophobia Committee. Oh my golly, this guy's been at it for decades. So he runs an Arab lobbying institute, but he claims there is no Arab lobby, there's no Arab lobbying, and the guy is promoting Palestine and Islamophobia.
They must most definitely have links with the Muslim Brotherhood, because obviously the term that was coined, which was Islamophobia, would come from the Muslim Brotherhood. Which is being used clearly to silence those who wish to criticize Islam or anything to do with Muslims.
Yeah, and he's on the cover of DC Insider, right? And he's telling us there is no Arab lobby, there's no Arab influence, just so we know.
And by bizarre coincidence, we're seeing in many secular lands, predominantly in the United Kingdom and in America, where you're finding people from a Muslim background gaining political traction, and it's not happening, say, once every generation, or maybe 2 or 3 people every generation. We're seeing it simultaneously, all of a sudden, happening at the same time. When you consider Yusuf in Scotland, when you consider Shabana Mahmood, Sadiq Khan, Zidani in the United States, and you've got the Somalian woman in the United States as well. These are the ones that have got predominantly because of one issue or another, but they've all appeared within, say, the last 5 years. And there are other Muslims that could be mentioned as well.
Sure.
Zahari is another one. The list goes on, but it's all within the last 5 years these names have come up. And I don't see that being a coincidence.
And of course, people ignore the role of Arab oil money. Now we know that the Arab oil lobby, we might call it, is older than the Israeli lobby by nearly 18 years. It started with the Arab National League of America in the 1930s. Why does no one talk about that? In 1951, King Saud of Saudi Arabia, we've mentioned that, the Arab lobby is a group of 21 Islamic states plus Palestine. And don't forget, they are the largest voting bloc in the UN. The OIC, I think it's 51 countries. Then, they are Saudi-led and dominated, represented in the US by oil interests, defense contractors, and corporations with commercial interests in Saudi Arabia, right, and 21 markets. Now, the Pentagon, obviously weapon sales to protect US interests against Iran and the former Soviet threat. So there's a lot of interest from the US to prop them up for stability in the region. And of course, they need to make sales in the US to lower unit costs and extend production life. So that's another source of income for the US. And then you have to look at the Palestinian question. Lobbying on behalf of the Palestinians, or they're lobbying against Israel, because let's look at the Palestinians. Let's look at these. Let's zoom in here to the Palestinians. This was the Palestinian Hitler Youth.
Seen that, yeah. Before, yes, it's crazy.
Right, and you can see the words Palestina and Palestina here. This is the Palestinian Hitler Youth. These are your Palestinian Nazis. This is the Grand Mufti of Palestine, and I think this is Himmler, head of the SS. Oops, sorry. Let's go back here. You can see him. These guys were great friends. This is the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. These are Palestinians, Hamas supporters. Sorry about that. I just went again too far. You can see there's a guy called Hitler, who's great friends with the Palestinian Mufti. And also, you know what? People go, do you know that the Americans, after World War II, they took the Nazis in Operation Paperclip. They took 153 Germans and they took them to the US, 153. Do people know how many Germans are known to have moved to Egypt? How many Nazis escaped to Egypt? About at least 6,000.
We've had this discussion as well before, Lloyd, because what's more powerful, the person who can make a gun or the person that can persuade another person to pick up the gun and fire it at another fellow human being? A propaganda machine is more powerful than any weapon. That's a fact. If you can change the mind and the heart of a person, then you're more powerful than any weapon. Hence why Operation Paperclip, in my estimation, was a distraction of Werner von Braun. He goes over to NASA, blah, blah, blah. But the real weapons, the real tools that the Americans and the Soviet were after was the German Nazi propaganda machine.
Well, the Soviets
necessarily like that, but I mean, they needed to get the bomb because you didn't want Russia to get it first. There would have been some serious issues. But we can see the Palestinians were Nazis then, and the Palestinians are Nazis now. I don't think there's any real sort of, question about the fact that the Palestinians were Nazis and are Nazis.
You often see them quite well, on the likes of OME or OME.tv and other platforms like that, where you speak with strangers. They come on, and if there's a Jew on the other side, they'll start saying, "Hail Hitler." They do it at protests as well. Some that are bold enough, if there's no police nearby, they will say, like, they love Hitler or do the Nazi salute, and they have no problems doing that. The left will never call them out on it. Of course they won't. Whilst pointing the finger at everyone else, calling them a Nazi.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely incredible how much they have infiltrated not just the education system, but the whole establishment in all areas. They have infiltrated every sector, which was the plan by the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're 50 years into it. But let's also remember as well what Yuri Bezmenov warned us of back in 1983, in the 80s, when he said the exact same thing. The propaganda machine is what will destroy Western civilization.
Yeah, demoralize people, and that's what I'm saying. They're pushing. When at the beginning, Yuri Bezmenov talks about the demoralization of the indigenous of a certain country. That's the best tool to have, and you do it via propaganda, which goes back to what I was saying earlier on, that people are being pushed into a direction they wouldn't willingly go there, but they are now being forced into taking certain decisions that they would never have done, and the tool that's being used in order to do that is Islam. I just want to go to a comment, if I may, with somebody that put a comment in the chat, Chopper2204, who says the best way to counter is through quoting their own text to avoid the Stasi. So education is essential. The problem you have with that, Chopper, is that anybody now, when they challenge Islam, they're only doing it with the text. They're not using insults, they're not using slurs, they're not using pejoratives or ad hominems. We are quoting the sources. That's the problem that Muslims have, because we know what the Quran teaches, and we know what the Hadith teach, and we know what the tafsirs have said with reference to the text. So the issue isn't the pejoratives as such. The issue is it's actually quoting the sources, and quoting the sources can actually get you in a lot more problems now.
Yeah, but you know what? Social media is where this fight's being won. Everyone knows the news is lying to them. And it's, you can see the dissent is growing. I mean, you know what's crazy? The Labour Party, no, the Green Party ad that was in Urdu. That was insane.
And the Spencer.
But there's no colonization happening in the UK.
Well, you say that, Lloyd. Didn't Shabana Mahmood turn around and say something like in the past few days, Ron, you may want to correct me on this, that they're going to be offering £10,000 or £40,000 to people to go back to their countries of origin. Now, the irony is, as soon as I heard that, I thought to myself, well, shall I just get on a boat and come over and I'll pick up my £40,000 as well? All you're doing...
I'm on the next boat over tomorrow morning, guys.
All you're doing with that is inviting. That's more of an invite for people to come over because they've now got an incentive to do so. And how are you going to do the checks? I mean, one person could come over 3 or 4 times to keep picking up a check for, say, 10 or 40,000 pounds or whatever the fee may be. And then you have to look at the countries that have been included or excluded. I haven't done the research. I only picked up on this only a couple of days ago, and there's so much going on. You can't research everything. But it wouldn't surprise me, Shabana Mahmood being a Pakistani, if Pakistan is not on the exemptions list from that for those funds to be paid out.
Yeah, it's actually not, and because I've looked at the papers as exactly the same as Pakistan is not on the list, neither to talk about deporting illegals back to their country or putting kind of tariffs or blocking visas, if you like. They have picked certain countries, but not the Islamic ones or the extreme hardline Islamic ones that we would pick if you ask the British people. But yeah, the £40,000. So it's £10,000 per head. However, if you are in a family of 4, it can be up to £40,000. It don't go more, but that's an extreme.
Don't worry, Rowan.
It's incredible.
It comes out of your taxes, so don't worry. You're paying taxes for a good cause.
But the thing is, if they're throwing their paperwork, how do you know the family members anyway? It'll only be just a mere claim, because you could never effectively prove what is and what isn't a family.
I could pretend not to speak English. I can come over and I'm like, nee, ek praat nie Engels nie, jammer. Ek praat net Afrikaans, asseblief, help my, gee my geld, give me money, please, ja, help me, asseblief. Ek kan nie praat nie, ek is van Afrika, help me, gee my geld. I can make up a story, what the heck, I'm sure I'm African.
You sounded like Kenneth Copeland there. I thought you were speaking tongues.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. So, but anyway, so guys, we'll wind down shortly. But Arab youths found Nazi club in Haifa. Interesting. All these Muslim Nazis, and we don't talk about this enough. These Muslim Nazis. Nazis affiliate with Arabs to boycott Palestine. What the Nazis are joining with the Arabs to boycott Palestinian goods. So the Nazis and the Arabs are getting together to boycott Palestine. I thought what? Someone explain that to me.
That is nuts. Have you seen the recent one as well, which was just brought out today? Is that the new argument now is, should we be paying reparations to Palestinians for the troubles that we caused years ago? That's another argument that we're going to be paying for soon.
But then that would be the Jews, because according to this article, the Arabs and the Nazis are getting together to give the Jews of Palestine a hard time. Zionist goods from Palestine. It says here that Palestine is Zionist. Oh my, oh my. And accompanied by 15 Nazi agents, they conferred with Nazi reps in the Near East and decided to establish closer contact with Arab youth groups. So let's see, Arab youth groups and Nazis. I wonder what you'd get.
Yep, the unholy alliance.
Yeah, interesting. And this continues. Suspect Nazis in Palestine uprisings. Nazi complicity in the Arab revolt increased when numerous German citizens who spoke fluent Arabic were arrested in Jaffa on suspicion of being connected with disturbances. Isn't that interesting? Many of the rifles found with Arab rebels were of German manufacture. Isn't that fascinating?
I wonder what they have in common.
It's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. Oh my golly. Yeah. Nazi handbills openly spread in Jerusalem. I wonder who would be doing that. Oh, the Palestine government. Good grief. We'll start an investigation into the origin of these, and they're not referring to Arabs here. Every cent which goes into a Jewish pocket is a nail in the coffin of an Arab. Not Palestinians, Arabs, because the Jews were the Palestinians. Isn't that odd? Swastika on Arab oranges displays the Berlin Aryans. Wow. Official circles in Berlin are protesting against the use of the swastika, the official Nazi emblem, found printed on the wrappers of Palestine oranges intended for export to Germany. They're displeased that the German national symbol is being used for advertising purposes. Oranges marked St. Elijah at Jaffa were wrapped in paper bearing a picture of the Prophet surrounded by swastikas. The Prophet Muhammad surrounded by swastikas. Who would tell me the Prophet Muhammad, is he Jewish? So your thoughts, guys. The Prophet Muhammad surrounded by swastikas, exported by an Arab firm. So what am I getting here?
I don't know if you've got any of the images of some protests that have been taking place many years ago, where there are women in hijabs and things and headscarves where they're holding up signs and placards saying "God bless Hitler."
Yeah,
you know. So it comes as no surprise. They've got a common enemy, so
yep,
the enemy of my enemy.
You know, so look, Chopper, I don't want to get too distracted and dive into a million off-topic or different tangents or threads, but just speak up. The thing is, they're trying to take away your voice, so speak up. Think of it this way. They're trying to silence you so that they can just push their agenda, but they know that the population needs to be compliant. But if there's dissent, if there's unhappiness, and this builds and builds and builds, there will be pushback, and eventually there'll be an explosion they can't cope with. Also, they want to create this false view of everything's hunky-dory. It's like they think of this purity. These groups always have a purity, right? Think of a white wall, perfectly white wall, or a bathtub filled with milk, just plain. And what happens is someone comes along with a drop of black ink, and he puts one drop of black ink or makes one smudge on that perfect wall. Or think of your car, your brand new car, and someone makes a scratch on that new car. You don't see the perfectly beautiful paint job. You see that scratch. You see that drop of black ink. Be that drop of black ink. Be the voice they can't shut up, right? Because that everyone sees the black ink. Everybody, it disturbs, it bothers everybody. Use your voice, speak up. Let people know that they're not alone. Let people know that others feel the same way. Let people understand that they also can speak up. Inspire others to speak. Let them know they don't stand alone, that others feel the same way. And simply use your voice and speak. That's all we need to do. And how powerful it is, yeah?
I was going to say, Daft Lad 4408 in the chat. I see you. It's not Rag and Bone Man, mate. It's Rag and Roan Man. That's what. That's why I get nicknamed. But I see you.
Right.
And to Chopper 2204, it says, do you agree with that quoted sources instead of pejoratives is also not going to work? I think it would be harder to punish you for simply quoting, in my opinion. I'm going to disagree with you there. Because nobody is using pejoratives. It'd be too easy to. And with Islam, you don't need pejoratives. You don't need ad hominem. You don't
Islam
need
insults itself.
Insult exactly that. When you go to the Quran and it teaches things like that, all non-Muslims, I paraphrase, but all non-Muslims are the worst of creatures. Or Muhammad marrying a 6-year-old girl at the age of 52 and having consummated the marriage. I would use stronger words than consummate, but we'll go with what the Hadith says. Consummate the marriage when he was 54 and she was 9. Or Muhammad causing the divorce of his adopted son's wife and then marrying that woman for himself. Or Muhammad making ludicrous historical claims that Jesus didn't.
The perfect man, think of this, the perfect man shagged a 9-year-old. The perfect man shagged his son's wife.
And his
the
aunt.
perfect man made his son divorce his wife so that the perfect man could marry that wife and shag her because he coveted his neighbor's wife. I believe that's one of the 10 deadly. That's one of the 10 commandments.
And Quran 33:21, it says, "With you is the most excellent pattern of conduct." So the problem that you've got is not only do we quote what the actual sources say, because we don't need to use insults. The actual official sources are sufficient to cause a problem. And then when you have the Quran saying you've got the most excellent pattern of conduct, and then you identify that it's incumbent on the person in front of you who is a Muslim to actually follow the pattern, because that's what the word pattern implies, that you follow his behavior. Then it becomes incumbent on the Muslim to then follow that pattern for themselves and incorporate Muhammad's life pattern in their own life. That's the problem.
So is it okay what Epstein did? Right? Epstein is guilty of what? The girls are recorded to be as young as 14. Is it okay what Epstein? No, that's pedophilia. Okay, how old was Aisha? Right? And why is that okay now? But Muhammad's so you can ask, was Epstein the perfect example, the pattern for all men to follow, for all Muslims to follow? Fuck no, of course not. Disgusting, pedophile, criminal. Should Epstein go to jail? Yes, of course. It was a crime. Muhammad shagged a girl 5 years younger than Epstein's youngest victim.
Whilst being older than Epstein. Whilst being older than Epstein, he had a girl that was younger than anything Epstein had as well.
Exactly.
And that's without talking about the teachings and laws that are also in other Islamic texts, which promotes having intercourse with animals, dead bodies, how to
drinking camel urine, dipping the whole fly in food in case because one wing has a disease and the other one has eating 7 ajwa dates, and it'll protect you from poison for the rest of the day. The problem you have is, this is why when you look at Islamophobia as a word implies pejoratives or negative connotations. When you use the word attacking Muslimness, it implies you're quoting something from the source that is causing distress to the Muslim. That's why they have to say things like attacking Muslimness. It's because
hold on. I just want to show one thing, Bugger. This is ask your Muslim friends why, if you read the Epstein files, Mr. Jeffrey Epstein was sent, and I've covered this extensively on my channel multiple times. I'm not going to go into all of it now. Why was Mr. Jeffrey Epstein sent 3 pieces of the Muslim Kaaba, the holiest place, the holiest relic in all of Islam, in Mecca, right? Why was Mr. Jeffrey Epstein sent pieces of the Kaaba from the outside? And this is the kiswa cloth that covers the Kaaba. He was sent a piece of that cloth. And also in the emails, it says, we are sending 3 pieces of the Kaaba for Jeffrey Epstein's mosque.
So, of course, to show off to his Muslim friends that he invited onto the island, and also make it more inclusive for them, I would say. Make them feel at home.
So, of course, here you go. I mean, so once you start looking at all of these things, you have to start wondering, why would Jeffrey Epstein have a mosque? So why would Jeffrey Epstein have a mosque on his island? Because apparently it was a mosque. And it was shaped like the Dome of the Rock. And, of course, here's him in the kiswa cloth. And if you read the emails, you'll look for Kaaba in the Epstein files, the word Kaaba, K-A-A-B-A in the Epstein files, and you'll find the emails we're sending you, the pieces of the Kaaba for your mosque.
Yep.
So, yeah, just ask your friends.
It really shows he had more than one Muslim there at a time, because, of course, you'd have to have an imam leading the prayers. So he must have had clerics there. He must have had leaders of faith there. Plus your regular Muslims as well. So there must have been a lot of Arab influence coming out of Epstein Island and going to Epstein Island.
Oh, yeah. So there's questions we need to ask. So did he say, okay, so Catherine says Epstein sold Little St. James to a UAE Sultan dude. So guys, shall we, tell you what, shall we come back to this in like 2 weeks? What do you guys think? 2 or 3 weeks? Come back to this?
Definitely, and I would like to ask as well if we could actually do one stream in the future. It doesn't have to be, soon, but anytime in the future where we can discuss some of the most controversial Islamic texts that are out there and actually shine a light on what Islam actually is and some of the texts within it.
If you can plan that, then we can do that. Yeah, Thunderous, what are your thoughts? Shall we convene again in, say, 2 weeks and go further through this, my little PowerPoint here, and talk more about these topics?
Yeah, I'm up for that, as long as the people in the chat are up for it as well.
Yeah. So, guys, hopefully you've learned something useful. Hopefully you've seen that maybe the history can do with a little bit of work. There's a lot more Islamic Nazism and other issues than we are aware of. And we're going to dig in the future, in the near future, we'll dig very deeply into the massive influence that these Muslims have on politics worldwide. We'll focus on the UK and the US, but you're going to see that these people have vast amounts of money, and they are using it to benefit the Islamic cause. So, yeah, this is of great concern. But if we keep talking about it, I think public sentiment is a massive mover and driver, and I think we can make change simply by just talking about it. We don't have billions of dollars, but we can talk about these things, and we can strip away those secrets and ask your friends about the whole Epstein question. You know, what mosque did he have in his island that he was sent pieces of the Kaaba for?
That's the thing, isn't it, Lloyd? Isn't it? Many people in the Muslim world are saying, "Well, there were no Muslims in the Epstein file." No, you just had the Kaaba, the holiest thing that you could possibly imagine. Really?
And a mosque on the island. I wonder if there was a church or a synagogue.
No, there was a mosque.
A temple, a gurdwara, or whatever.
Yeah, of course they'll just deny it. But yeah, so guys, so should we call it a night here? And then, but thanks. This has been really, really great. Thank you to the audience. Thank you. Any last words from you guys before we go?
No, well, just a quick one. Obviously, I have my own channel, which I'm working on. So I've been going to a lot of protests recently. If any of you guys want to see what they've been like, you're more than welcome to check out the channel. There are some good content on there at the minute, and there's going to be more coming out soon.
Radio. Yeah, Thunderous, last word.
Thank you, everybody. I want to thank Rowan for the Patriot Christians for joining the show this evening. Always a pleasure to have you on the panel. Lloyd, thank you for inviting me on this evening's show, and I look forward to getting together with you guys in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, this has been a great one. So, guys, we'll pick it up. I think there's a lot that we can reveal to people here. There's a lot to think about. But, guys, look, we're going to win this one. be confident. We are going to win this one, right?
Definitely.
Seriously, people who drink camel pee, I don't think the world belongs to them, okay?
No, it doesn't. And
Take care,
don't
guys.
forget, and the next one, we'll share it absolutely everywhere so people do know about it.
Take care.